What is going down, guys? I'm back with another tutorial, and in this tutorial I'm going to be teaching you how to create a professional looking search field using HTML and CSS, while also using a little bit of JavaScript to add to the functionality of the search bar and to make it look a little bit more professional and more advanced as well. Okay? So without further ado, guys, let's get straight to it. So then, first of all, you're going to need to open your preferred text editor. I'm using Sublime Text 2 today, as I no longer have Adobe Dreamweaver. Okay, and then you're going to need to create a new text file. So we're going to start off by typing out the bare bones of a HTML document. Okay, so we're going to start off with .type HTML, and HTML tag, open the head tag, open the title tag, and close the title tag, close the head tag, close the, open the body tag, leave a couple of lines, close the body tag, and then finally close off the HTML tag. And that's our bare bones of the HTML document. Just indent title there. And we're going to put as the title professional, professional search bar, because that's what we're going to be creating today. So, file, save, and then I'm just going to create a new folder on my desktop, and I'm going to call it Pro Search Bar. Oops, forgot the space. Okay, and then inside this folder, you're going to save the actual file as index.html. You can name it whatever you want, but I always call the first web page of any of my sites index.html, and I advise that you do the same too. So back in here then, underneath the title, we're going to put in a link tag, and it's going to be linkrel equals stylesheet, href equals css/style.css, and this is going to link to our CSS file for our styling. The style.css can be named whatever you want as long as it's .css, and I'm going to put it in the CSS folder, which is why I put css/style.css. Then we're going to open the script tags. This is where our JavaScript's going to sit later on when we get to it. So script type equals text/JavaScript, and don't forget to close off the script tag as well. Right, so back down into the body tag then now. We are going to create our form, so we need to open the form tag and then close the form tag, and this is what's going to contain our search bar and our search button. So we're going to open a new tag, an input tag. Input type equals text, ID equals search bar, placeholder, we're going to add in a placeholder which is going to be equal to nothing at the moment, it's just going to be blank. A value equal to search ... You can put whatever you want in this really, but just put search for the time being, and then until you kind of learn the process and how it all works, and then you can adapt it and change it yourself at the end. That's what I advise. Max length equals, we'll say 25. That's how many characters you're going to be able to input within the text field. Autocomplete is equal to off. Now in here, this can either be on or off. If it's on, that's when you get, like, you start typing in a search box or in a text field and you get the suggestions underneath as you're typing. If you set it to off, you don't get those suggestions. So it's just what you prefer really. It's completely up to you, on or off. Have a play with it yourself by all means. And then we're going to have on mouse down equal to nothing and on blur equal to nothing. We'll get to these later on. Those tie in with the JavaScript section of this tutorial later on. Inside the form tag, I'm going to add action and method properties. The method is going to be equal to post, and the action, this is basically wherever you the web page where you want your form to link to and send the information to from the form. So in this case, search.php will probably be the name of the page where you're going to display your search results, etc. So I'm putting that in there just as like a template. I don't have search.php, we're not going to be creating that today. That's something you can develop later on. And then underneath the input that we've just added in, the text box, we're going to add in a button. So input type equals submit, ID search btn. It's just an abbreviation for button. Value is equal to go. The value can be anything you want. It's really up to you. It can be search, it can be submit, go, proceed, anything you want. And then don't forget to close it off with the slash at the end of that tag. So that looks about right. So file and save. So now when we open this up in our favorite browser, mine's Google Chrome, it should display the text box that we've just created, or in our case the search bar, and the button as well, the submit button, or in our case the search button. And as you can see, when it's open, double clicked on, just zoom in, you can see that the search bar has been created with the text inside it saying search ... which is what we set the value to, and then the search button has also been created alongside it. Now as you can see, I can type whatever I want in here, but I'm limited to 25 characters because that's what I set as the max length for this text field. So you can set that to whatever you want. You can have 5 in there, you can have 10 in there, you can have 100 in there. It's completely up to you, that value that you want to set. And if you click the go button, the search button, the submit button, whatever you want to call it, it should submit then to a search.php, which we haven't created, and you should get an error message saying that that page can't be found. Anyway, back in to our text editor now, we're going to create a new file, and this is going to be our CSS file. So file and save before we start. And inside our Pro search bar folder, we're going to create a new folder called CSS. Remember, this is the folder that I stated all the way back at the beginning. So remember to name it whatever you named it. And again, I'm calling it style.css because that's what I named the file, the target file. That's what I chose it to be. So make sure you name it correctly, otherwise it's not going to work, it won't link. So in here then, I'm going to do hash search bar with a capital B, open parentheses and close parentheses, and do the same underneath that, but this time search button btn with a capital B, because these are the IDs that we are targeting, which we set for our search box, our search bar, and our search button. So in the search bar now, we're going to put border 1 pixel solid, and the 6 zeros, hash 6 zeros, is black, solid black. Okay, so that's going to be a nice 1 pixel solid border, and it's going to be black. We're going to add font size of 16 pixels, not too big, not too small. Again, you can change these to whatever you want. This is just a rough guideline. This is just what I've chosen. We're going to add a padding of 10 pixels and an outline equal to none. Now, we'll get to that in a second. We're just going to add a width of 250 pixels. That's going to be the width of our search bar. Again, you can set that to what you want. Now, the outline, that's basically when, I'll just show you. That's basically when you select the text box, and as you can see, that blue, well, in Google Chrome, you get like a blue glow around the edge, and same with like the search button and things, and any kind of interactivity like that. The outline, when it's set to none, that removes that completely so that it doesn't highlight the text box when it's selected or active. In the search button styling, we're also going to add a border of 1 pixels, solid and black. We're going to add a font size of 16 pixels as well, also a padding of 10 pixels. This time, it's a little bit different. We're going to add a background of F1D829. Don't forget the hash in front. This is like a medium to dark yellow colour. We're going to add a font font weight of bold. This makes the text bold. We're going to add cursor of pointer, and again outline none. The cursor pointer, file save. The cursor pointer, basically, you know when like you hover over a link or something like that on a website, and you get the pointer as your cursor instead of the arrow. It's basically that really, and you don't have to do that, but I think it always looks nicer on buttons. It's not the default setting. It's a pointer is a button, so I always set it to a pointer rather than an arrow. Sorry. So when you open it in your favourite browser, you can see that this is now what it looks like, and it's getting there. It's well on its way, but as you can see, there's still quite a bit of style in there that could do with doing. So back into our CSS document now, our styling document. In the search bar section, we are going to add -webkit border top left radius of 10 pixels. Basically that sets the border top left radius, so the edge, the corner, to 10 pixels, so it's a rounded corner basically. That's what we're doing now. Then same again, except this time it's the bottom left radius of 10 pixels, so the top and bottom left hand corners are going to be rounded by 10 pixels. Then it's the same again, except this time this one's for Mozilla Firefox, the top one's for Google Chrome, the WebKit. So -moz border radius and this time top left. Remember to get this right, okay? Otherwise it won't work in some browsers like Mozilla Firefox, for example. Again, make sure it's set to 10 pixels. It's got to remain consistent. And then finally, for Internet Explorer and Google Chrome and things like that, the standard property is border top left radius, and same for the bottom left radius. And again, both set to 10 pixels. So it's quite a lot of code in there just to make two of the corners of our text box rounded instead of pointy. But when we file, save and refresh in our browser, you can see it's worked, and you can see that our search box is now taking shape, and it's looking a little bit more professional, and it just looks a lot nicer, in my opinion. It doesn't look as boring and as basic. So now we're going to copy the code that we've just typed there to make the rounded corners on the text box, on the text field, and we're going to paste it into the search button styling. Except everywhere it says left, we're going to change it to right. So, for example, -webkit border top right radius instead of -left radius, because now we're doing the right hand side for the button, and you'll see why in a minute. We're going to keep them again 10 pixels, file, save, open up our browser and refresh, and you will now see that on the right hand side of the button, the same thing has happened. So you can see what I've tried to achieve here. So the rounded edges are on like the far side of the text box and the far side of the button, so that when we put them together in a minute and the join, it's going to look like one solid entity, one solid object. So go back to index.html now, and where we have put the button code underneath the text box code, we are going to move it onto the same line with no spaces in between the text box code and the button code. And that's going to basically bring them both together in the browser. So there's going to be no space between the two objects in the browser. Putting a space like that will basically mean that you're going to get a space again. You know, you're just defeating the object of putting them on the same line if you do that. So file, save, make sure those are together on the same line, refresh, and you will see now that the button and the text box are now side by side. They're now joined together. One thing that we need to do now, if we just go back into this styling document, the CSS file, just underneath in the search bar section, underneath the border, we're going to add in border -right as none. It's going to be equal to none. And basically, that's going to remove the border on the right hand side. Because there were two borders together, it was basically a 2 pixel border. And as you can see when we refresh in the browser, it's now just a 1 pixel border between the button and the search text box. It's the search bar, whatever you want to call it. There's now just 1 pixel between. Because obviously, if one of them had a border the entire way around of 1 pixel, and so did the other one, when they're joined together, side by side, there's going to be a 2 pixel border between them, separating them. So you just needed to remove one of those. Now, back to this max length that was on about. I've just changed it to 5 here, and I'll show you what I mean. Refresh in the browser, and if I try and type in here now, I can only type 5 characters. I can type any 5 characters that I want, but I can only type up to 5. I can't type any more than 5. And that's exactly what I mean. So you can set that max length to whatever you wish. It's entirely up to you. However many characters you want the user to be able to insert or input into that text box. But I usually stick around 25 to 30, maybe 40, at the most. But it's 25 for this purpose today. So now we're ready for the JavaScript. And this is where it gets interesting, because we're going to add a little bit of functionality to our search bar. So we're going to type function active, open curly bracket, close curly brackets, open curly brace, and close curly brace, leaving a gap in between. And in here we're going to put var, which is short for variable, search bar, equals document.getElementById, by ID, open curly brackets, and inside 2 quotes, and inside the 2 quotes, target the element that you want to target. In this case, I'm targeting the search bar, and because I'm obviously targeting the element by its ID, it needs to be the same as the ID of the element which we set to search bar. Then below this, we're going to create an if statement. So if search bar dot value is equal to, and then in quotes search dot dot dot, which is what we set the value to of the search bar, then basically inside the curly brackets, the curly braces, we're going to say search bar dot value is equal to nothing. So just 2 quotes with nothing in between. And then we're going to say search bar dot placeholder is equal to search. Now if you wonder what the placeholder is, that's what we set below when we were creating the text box element, and we set it to nothing. So at the moment it's got nothing in it by default, and the value is search. But then what we're saying here is, if the value is equal to search, which it is by default, then remove the value of search, and instead, in the placeholder, add in the value of search dot dot dot. Instead, basically. So it's like replacing the value. It's like the value's turning into the placeholder, basically. Now, on mouse down, the attribute that we set previously, we're going to add in active with our 2 curly brackets and a semicolon. Now this is targeting the function active which we've just created, so that on mouse down that function will be triggered. So if we refresh now in the browser and we select the search box, as you can see on the click of the search box, as the mouse goes down, as you click, the value goes, and instead the placeholder is generated. So the value disappears and you can only see the placeholder, which says the exact same thing as the value, but it's just in place of it. It just looks nice, and it's just a nice little bit of functionality to add, really. Now we're going to copy and paste the function we've just created, and instead of it saying active, instead of the function being called active, we're going to change it to inactive. The variable is going to be the same. The only thing we need to change is if searchbar.value is equal to nothing this time. So if it's got nothing in it, then search bar.value equals search ... and search bar.placeholder equals nothing. So this is basically doing the reverse. So when the text box or the search bar is inactive and not active, then it will do the reverse, and it will get rid of the placeholder, and it will instead add in the value of search again. Now, back down here, the attribute onBlur, we're going to add in inactive with the 2 curly brackets and the semicolon. OnMouseDown is basically onClick. OnBlur is when you deselect an object or you leave an object. For example, you click off of the text box. OnBlur will trigger the function inactive. So you'll see what I mean when we refresh in the browser. So when we click on the text box, you can see it changes to a placeholder, and you can still type in it, blah blah blah. Then when we click off of the text box, you can see it goes back to default, it goes back to normal. The placeholder disappears and the value reappears. Okay? Every time you click on and off of the search bar. So I just think that's quite nice because it shows that you've selected the search bar and that you've got the search bar selected. And it's just a nice little user aid, if you like, just to help the user out and show them that they're currently selected the search bar and they're currently on the search bar because of the changing colour of the value / placeholder, whatever you want to call it. If you get what I mean, if you kind of get what I mean, hopefully you do. So back into the text editor now. The last little thing that we need to add is a hover state for the search button, so that when we hover over it, the background changes. So we're going to create a new rule in our CSS document. This time it's hash search button, but this time it's :hover to create the hover state. And then in here, we're going to set the background to hash, I want it a lighter yellow than the one we have before, so F6E049. Remember the hash in front of that. And as you can see, or you will see, this will be a lighter yellow. So it kind of highlights the fact to the user, the fact that they are hovering over the search button. So when we refresh in the browser, you can see that when we hover over the search button, the colour changes, the background colour of the button changes to a slightly lighter yellow than before. And there we go. That's our professional looking search bar created, and it all works, and it looks nicely styled, looks professional, and yeah. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Please let me know in the comment section below if you found this tutorial useful and helpful in any way. So yeah, remember to like, share, comment, and don't forget to subscribe to be notified every time I upload a new video so that you don't miss out. Bye guys.